I'm Suzanne Vinnick. Over the past 2 months, I've been hosting a show for the Dallas Opera Network that focuses on fashion, entrepreneurship, and friendship in the classical music space. Since the unconscionable murder of George Floyd on May 25th, people across our nation have raised their voices and expressed their righteous anger about the systemic racism and brutality inflicted upon Black and brown bodies. As a white female business owner and performing artist myself, I'm using my platforms through both the Shopratic community and Dallas Opera to amplify the voices of those who need to be heard right now. Today I'm joined by Brianna Hunter, Andy Moore, Claudia Chapa, and my producer, Carrie Northano, as a diverse panel of guests who have appeared on Diva Who Hustles. As divas, it's important to not only listen, but to engage in a meaningful way to combat inequality happening on our streets, in our homes, and on our stages. I hope you'll join me for this conversation.
So I briefly want to introduce each of our guests here who have been previous guests here on Diva Who Hustles in the past. Many of you know Carrie Ann in real life, but a lot of you haven't seen her on camera. This is my 50-50 in Diva Who Hustles, Miss Carrie Northano. Will you please tell us a little bit about yourself and about what this conversation today means to you?
Absolutely. I want to begin by saying that I'm glad that we're participating in this conversation, and we've had a lot of hard talks this week. We've listened to a lot of hard talks this week, and we really want to focus today on the positive change that we can make in our community. My name is Carrie Northano. I'm from New York originally, and I'm biracial. And being a biracial woman, I think it's an interesting perspective. I think there are a lot of people in this country who are biracial or multiracial and white passing. There are a lot of people who look like me. I have dismissed myself in this conversation. I have removed myself. I've silenced myself. And Brianna brought up to me recently, she reminded me of a law. It was in the 20th century, and it was a law that said that if you had one drop of Black blood in your body, if you had one Black ancestor, you were not white. Okay, so coming from that perspective, I just want to say, don't silence yourself. Don't remove yourself from this equation, because our voices, all minorities together, are the majority. And we need to speak up when we see injustice. We need to not hide in our whiteness. And we have a unique opportunity to carry on this conversation and to speak to our white relatives and to create positive change. So I just want to encourage you, if you look like me and you feel like you don't have a place, you do. Do it for yourself. Do it for your ancestors. Do it for your brothers and sisters who are out here fighting. You are part of this and you matter.
Thank you so much. And next up, I want to introduce Miss Brianna Hunter.
Yeah, I'm here today. Oh, so many reasons. I'm here. I've spoken to Suzanne previously as an arts administrator. I've spoken to Suzanne about as a singer, as a performing artist in this career. I am very interested in seeing real structural change in our industry, a real reflection and change in the opera industry in particular, but all arts industries, about the role that they feel they play in this movement, in this reckoning, as I've called it. I am here as a Black woman who is just exhausted, and I feel like it's not my responsibility to teach and to educate, right? However, I still feel like people just don't know that this is something that affects all of us, the things that we carry in ourselves in every space we exist as Black people in this country. It all ties in together with the brutal string of killings that we've seen over the past century and just this week, right? Carrie Ann, you got me. Because it really is. I want to drive home the point that it is our fight as humans, no matter what color we are. We should all be holding each other. We should all be embracing each other and taking on this fight as humans. looking out for our brothers and sisters. And so that's why I am here.
Thank you so much for saying that. Being a singer and also being an administrator, like there is a lot of weight on your shoulders, especially in everything that we're talking about. And I really look forward to hearing more from you on that during this conversation. Next, we have Miss Claudia Chapa, who has been one of my favorite guests on the show, who just brings humor, light, fashion, fun to every episode. But Claudia has a place here as well in this conversation, and I'm really excited to hear more about why you wanted to be here today.
I want to first thank you, Carrie Ann and Suzanne and Dallas, for allowing us to do this in the space, for inviting me to be a part of it. Super honored. I'm an immigrant and I'm Mexican. And there's a lot of colorism and racism within the Latino community that I think is difficult to acknowledge, that white passing immigrants have benefited from white supremacy and being white passing. And we have to really reflect that. We have to really sit down with that. It's uncomfortable. Without knowing, white supremacy has affected every single one of us. It's in our blood, it's in our bones, it's in our veins, and we don't know it. And so I'm excited to be here to learn and to say brown people have to unite with Black people, people of color. I know that there's a big umbrella that people like to put us all together, but we do not share the same experience. Yes, there are parallels in what it is to live in America, what it is to live in a Black community or an super underprivileged Mexican undocumented communities. They're highly policed. We have the same, but we're not the same. We follow a parallel with each other. So it's not a competition about who has the worst off here in the US. We're all here together. What affects you all affects us. And so I'm just so happy to be part of that.
And thank you so much for being here. I really look forward again to what conversations we're going to have here on this panel today. And without further ado, I want to introduce my friend of over a decade, Miss Andi Moore, the mogul, the diva boss. Andi, would you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about yourself here?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. It's so good to see y'all beautiful ladies, okay? Divas. So let me just say, this is heavy, 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 heavy. And I get it. As you can see, I am a mother first. I have a lot of roles about me, but the first thing is I am a mother of two beautiful, handsome, strong, intelligent, Black little boys. I have two of them. And the reason why I'm up here is because of those two little boys. I typically keep silent, not necessarily to blend in, but not make any waves, okay? But because I have these two beautiful, handsome, intelligent, Black little boys that will one day become handsome, strong, educated, Black young men, I want to make sure that they have the opportunities that not only I have been able to be afforded myself, but I want them to also be looked at as who they are inside and not necessarily the color of their skin. I don't want you to judge the book by its cover. And I want to make sure that when you hear me speak, that you see that I am no different than you are. I am educated. I have a master's degree. I sing all over the world. I speak a couple of different languages. I am a mother. I own businesses. I have a husband who is also African American. And I am a Christian. I'm a believer of the Most High God. And I want you to hear me because when you hear me, you'll see that I am no different than you are. And somehow, over history, over time, we have been able to separate ourselves. And just like, Chapa said about the brown community, we somehow separate ourselves. But we have in the Black community the same type of racism and discrimination among ourselves. We don't need no help from nobody else, let me tell you. But what I would like to make sure that we stress is, how can we pass through this, grow from it, and continue to build more people, a community of people, not just build people of color, but build a community of people to see that equality is just. That's what we're asking for. Equality is just. And I'm so glad to be a part of this group of powerful, wonderful, educated, gorgeous, intelligent women. Let me say that again. Intelligent, powerful, wonderful, glory is over these women's head that are sitting right here, right now, to have this conversation with you, okay? And I'm proud to be a part of them, because women have power. Years ago, unfortunately, we didn't, but we do now. And we have so much power that the men believe that they are the heads, but we are the neck. You can't turn without the head and the neck, boo-boo. You need the neck. You can't turn your head without me. So, with that being said, I'm ready to get started with this conversation, ladies. I'm ready for us to just start turning it up. And for those of you who don't know the term turning it up, it means to have fun. And let's talk about what's really out there and what's really heavy on our hearts, but also to give some real solutions to make sure that, we're not just talking in the air and just venting as a bunch of women. We're here to actually give solutions. And I want you women who are listening and men who are listening, get a pen and paper. You're going to need a pen and paper, because these women have knowledge. Knowledge is power. So get a pen and paper. This knowledge that we're about to give, write it down, so that you can not only help yourself, but also help your colleagues, your friends, your family. Some of our family, we're not going to be able to help because they stuck in their ways. But you have to make the difference for you. You have to start with you. Make the difference for you. Some folks, I can't help some of my family, and I know it, because they've been mistreated too long and they got their ways and they stuck. But the difference starts with me and what I teach my boys. What are you teaching your children? Let's get started.
So let's start off with this question. This is a big question. What does the opera world need to do better to support Black, Indigenous, people of color? Let's start off with you, Carrie Ann.
The first step is listening, and not listening and waiting for your turn to speak, but listening to hear, listening to learn, right? We've had all of these incredible conversations led by leaders of the Black community in opera, led by people who are just coming up in opera in the Black community. They are telling us what they need. So that's step one. I think that we have an opportunity right now with people like Quo at Dallas Opera. Quo said a beautiful thing the other day. She said, we got to keep that same energy that we have right now. We got to keep that same energy moving forward to create change. So I would say the main thing that the opera industry needs to do right now is they need to employ people like Quo. They need to employ people like Brianna. Like, the answers are out there. And we got to stop asking Black and brown people to come and put on a show for us, and not invite them to the table.
Come on, speak about that. Speak about that, honey.
Yes.
You got me singing and bojangling, but you ain't gonna invite me to the table, honey. Oh, speak
okay.
about it.
I have such a huge investment in the idea that the culture of your company reflects its leadership, not simply the manifesto that is written. Maybe y'all posted something that said you were about Black Lives Matter, right? But what in y'all's leadership is reflecting that, right? And I say this because consistently you've now been privy to a lot of stories and backroom conversations that we've been having for years, right? We couldn't have them in front of you because it puts our jobs at risk, right? We want to work again. And who are the gatekeepers in this industry? Predominantly white men. So I'm going to get back to this principal statement. Your leadership reflects the culture of your company. So already we know, as from a very young age, that in order to survive in the streets, as we've seen, in order to get ahead in our prospective careers, that we have to put ourselves through certain filters. We have to filter out parts of ourselves when we're talking to you, right? I can't be, even down from, like, I wear my hair like this. For years it was bone straight, because wearing my hair the way it grows out of my head is deemed a political statement and an intimidation, and it affects every interview, and I would have, Andy was talking about our elders, that wouldn't understand. Like, I had relatives who were like, why are you wearing your hair like that? Oh my God, you're not going to get a job. You're not going to, Sorry, this stuff is real emotional for me to talk about. I'm trying to keep it, together. But so I say this to say, we have had people, especially, this is pervasive again with young artists. And as we've seen, Carrie was talking about conversations about like Black leaders in our industry too. So it doesn't matter, it goes from the top to the bottom, whether you're a superstar or you're brand new to the game, right? Where inappropriate things have been said to you in coachings, in the rehearsal room, by conductors, stage management, all of the people that work within your institution, right, need to be vetted, and there has to be real consequences for the behavior, right? So I'm back to the culture of the company. Comes back to the leadership. If the leadership of the company continues to let these things slide, that communicates tolerance for that behavior. And so what that communicates to us is that we don't really matter. We know that money's tight, right? But if there's a donor that is racist, and you sit me at their table for a gala or an event or whatever, and they're talking crazy to me, and I communicate that to you, it needs to be communicated that that is not tolerated in your institution, and that you value our lives over their dollars.
The question is, are you comfortable as a company to allow your artists, whatever race, religion, gender, are you comfortable with them being uncomfortable so we can secure a check or a bag for you?
If you really want to you have to put your money where your mouth is, and you have to put your actions where your words are as well. And when we come to you and say, like, I talk about hair a lot because this is like one of the number one offenses, right, to me, is the amount of people that have felt they are entitled, donors, staff, oh my God, just reaching right in there, petting me like I'm an animal. That is dehumanizing. And that is how that is just the beginning. If we continue to let these behaviors pass, the small, you consider small, but they feel big, dehumanizing gestures, that's how we get from that to a George Floyd murdered in the street. So that's why it's so important that y'all understand that, because it is all connected and it is your responsibility. And if you want to uphold the arts and arts institutions as these beacons for humanity and empathy, and music heals and it connects, then these are the things you need to stand behind with your actions, if you really and truly believe that. And I loved what that girl on that Fancy podcast Stand Tight podcast that you made me listen to, that you suggested I listen to, where she talks about we're not the minority. The
Right.
truth is we are the majority because all of us together
are the majority. That was Dr. Joy DeGruy. And she wrote a book that I'm going to include on the references that's fascinating, post-traumatic slave syndrome.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's about generational trauma. And one of the stories that she shared that I found so interesting was this generational trauma. It can be things that are innocuous, that you're taught that Black kids have to do, that white kids don't have to do. So she told the story about being a kid.
You can totally include this.
When she was a kid, she would grab a piece of toast and go to run out the door, right, for breakfast and run to school. And her mom said, no, you sit down and you eat your food. You sit down and you eat. And so that's what she did. And then when she had her own child, the same thing happened. And her child tried to run out the door and she said, no, you sit down and you eat. And her child's like 17, 18. And she says, Mom, why? Like, why do I have to sit down to eat? Like everybody eats walking around. It's not a big deal. And so she included it in her, in a presentation that she was doing because she's a lecturer. And this older Black man who also grew up in Louisiana where her mom grew up came up to her and said, I'm about the same age that your mom was. And I think I know why your mom made you sit down to eat. I think that it's because there were signs in Louisiana when we were growing up, when we were kids, that would say, no Black seating. And so we could go in and we could buy their food. They would take our money, but they wouldn't let us sit there. And so your mom, in a way, was saying, you don't have to do that anymore. You can sit and enjoy your meal. But like things like that's a generational trauma that was passed down that we don't know why we're passing it on to our kids. We just do. So we have to know our history. We have to be educated. We have to know what was going on. People just found out about the Tulsa race riots. Just found out. Like, that's shocking to me. We do not get enough. One of the books I'm going to include is called Lies My Teacher Taught Me. That's about the true American history. Like, American history is Black history. We slide it under the table so that we can make heroes out of these men, so that we can create patriotism under these white leaders. But the truth of the matter is that we have to know the truth. We have to know the facts. We have to know the real history to move forward. We can't move forward on a lie.
Yeah.
You know, like we are living in the lie of racial superiority and inferiority. That's been told to us our whole lives. That's been told to us through the history of what we're told, through Christopher Columbus being glorified as a hero, despite what he did, because he's the superior race and there's an inferior race. You know, like, this is what we're taught. We have to unlearn that to move forward. I will rant forever. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, but that was gold. And honestly, you should keep that.
I didn't realize how the real world was until I got in college, and then until I took an African American history class, and that's when I was like,
and why are those things elective? Like, that's what got me. Like, I had to go out of my way to take.
Me too.
I took a African politics class, the politics of Africa. That was an elective that I didn't have to take, but like, I was like, everyone needs to take this.
Everybody needs to take it. And I mean, what they're teaching in grade schools, the history of our country, it's just like a little, like, they're not even getting into it. They're not even skimming the surface. You know what I mean? And I just wish that more composers and conductors and directors would write and direct things of American Black and Brown American heroes, not just your Harriet Tubmans, not just your, Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, even though we need all of those types of operas. Someone was telling me that they would like to write an opera. It was a seamstress who made all of the clothes of the first ladies. And she was a famous Black woman. Of all of the first ladies who came to the White House. This woman, and this was in the 1800s, and I'm like, why don't we know about that sister?
Yep.
It's very similar to that intimate apparel. You know what I mean? She was famous Black and made great money, but nobody knows about her. And she was the one who made all of their stuff, and she would tell them, no, you need to pay me X amount of dollars for this. She won't shucking and jiving with them either. Why don't we hear about those people?
Right.
So that's what I just pray that with this time with COVID-19, folks are writing and people are getting out there and really telling stories of the unsung heroes.
Well, it's not so much that they're telling them. I think they've been telling them. It's that people are actually listening and they're stuck inside and they have to. I was telling Carrie, and I was like, it is weird, like, because you were nervous this morning too. And I was like, this is how I felt before Opera News, because all of a sudden I was like, it's not just me screaming into a void like normal, a void of apathy and complacency.
Yeah.
This is people actually tuning in because they think my words matter now and that there's validity in what I have to say. And that is new. And that's what's scary. That I am like, whoa. What is this new sensation of being heard?
Correct. I think that the opera world is such a vast but small universe. It really comes down to radical change. And that is hard. That is a difficult move for a company who is a business. It seems to be very difficult to create a diverse team and to cultivate the team members to really feel safe and comfortable, to make and reflect. You know, they say it takes a village. This particular village should reflect the community it wants to live in. You know, if you're just reflecting mostly white with one Hispanic girl and maybe one Asian lady, that's not enough to show what this movement is. And I also don't think that there's an end answer to any of the questions that we're going to cover right now, because it's what opera needs to do in order to make people of color, Indigenous people, Black people, transgender people, it's a long list, comfortable. It's going to change depending on the political and social climate. And if companies truly want to be ahead of it and want to be leaders in this, which they should, they need to understand we don't have an end goal. Because once we finish one thing, we got to move on to the next thing. It doesn't end. These answers that are going to be offered are suggestions, but implement the changes. And it's going to be some really radical stuff. Don't be scared. It's gonna be uncomfortable, but listen and do it.
And it is a risk, but it's an even greater risk to not. And that's the thing. No one wants to take the first step, like no one wants to be the first company that tries to do it. It is hard. We are always fighting. We're fighting for the validity of the arts in this country all the time. This country tells us all the time that the arts don't matter. The empathy doesn't even freaking matter. So we get it. You are fighting a lot already. We're fighting more. Recognize that your artists are fighting that plus. And I think that if you don't stand with us, it's an even greater risk. So you want diverse audiences. You want that Black donor on your donor list. Mm-hmm. You want, there are Black people with money out here. But what are you doing to show them that you care about Black people? Why would they give you their dollars if everything you do, you put people on blackface on stage? Still, I mean, you treat your Black artists, we're tokens, essentially, in this industry. And so why would they give their dollars to that? It's twofold, and it's kind of a catch-22, right? You're not going to get those dollars without making a lot of changes and maybe alienating. Maybe some people aren't going to give you their money anymore because you're taking this stance. But it opens the door for real, people keep throwing around equity, diversity, and inclusion, right? For that to be real, you're going to have to risk alienating people.
What does the opera world need to do? That is such a big ocean of answers. There is no one way to pick. We can say that it's who you take your money, because I think most opera companies are heavily influenced on the checks that they receive.
There are some companies that are already putting these type of things in place. I've worked for a couple of them, and I truly enjoy working for them. And Brianna, I'm with you that it does start from the top down, just like how our government is. Racism did not start with that person at the top. However, and systemic racism didn't start with the person that's in the office now or holding that CEO position now. However, if the person in the top leadership condones the behavior, then it sets the precedence and the mood and the structure of how the company or the country or the government or whatever it is, how it's going to be run. And because of that, when you put people in place who have open minds, when you put people in place, you know, I don't care if they are white, black, blue, but if you put folks in place that want to make sure that there is diversity in their company, in their arts organization, the change will happen. One company that I have to say right off the top of my mind, On-Site Opera, it's a small company. However, on first rehearsal day, they tell us these things will not be tolerated. And a lot of companies don't do that. I respect it. It brought tears to my eyes to hear that these things will not be tolerated. And if someone does these things, please report them, because we will not tolerate, and I'm gonna add my part, this here foolishness. Okay, I'm gonna add my little part. They're not gonna tolerate that foolishness. That's why I go back on a regular basis and work for that company. It's not always about the money. It's about sometimes the principle. And I do get that opera is a business. The arts is a business, and we have to feed the donors, and the donors have to get what they want. We understand that. However, when you hear your donors making side racist comments, that is when the president, the CEO, the head of the company has to step in, take over, take the donor to the side and say, we do not tolerate that. We would love your funds, your dollars. We would love to have that so you can have a tax write-off. But we will not tolerate you mistreating or making any of our artists feel less than. My other part to this is that they need to add, you know, yes, diversity does mean people of color, great. But every 2 whites, you need to have at least 1 person of color. Because some of the mistakes, some of the marketing, some of the things that are going out, nobody was of color on that board. And if you have at least 2 people, so every 2 whites, you need at least 1 person of color. And I'm gonna tell you why. If there are 10 people on the board, 4 of them need to be of color. And the reason why is hard to stand alone. In leadership, it's, you know, to be a leader, you're alone a lot. So you CEOs and presidents who are taking those checks and getting those funds, you're in that position for a reason, because you should be strong enough to stand by yourself, okay? That being said, it's hard when you're on a board or you're in a room and you're the only Black colleague in the space and you know something's not right. You find yourself being quiet about it because you're the only one. Let me just say, so you need to have multiple. That is what real diversity is, to have multiple people of color, not just one. Say, oh yes, we have 1 Black one. Oh yes, we have 1 Asian one. Mm-hmm. Oh yes, we have 1 Latino. No, boo-boo. You need multiple. And so that will help with the conversations. And believe me, when you're hiring out, we do exist. Like I said, educated.
We are here.
We do exist. We have master's degrees. We do exist. Because I heard, unfortunately, it's so terrible, but I heard someone say, I didn't know so many of you had degrees. And I was like, and I wanted to, and I just, you know, I had a probably the look of shock inside my body, but I have learned how to stay neutral, and I just have to look like, And in my mind, I'm saying, you dummy, what makes you think we ain't got degrees? We just as smart as you, honey. But you don't say that, okay? You don't want to be insulting as they insulted you. So yeah, I agree that it starts from the top down and that it needs multiple people so that people can stand together in helping with growing and marketing and who's going to be on the stage and not.
I just want to continue with what Andi was saying. We've talked a bit about comfort, right? About us being uncomfortable, about Black people being uncomfortable, people of color being uncomfortable in these situations. I want to talk about, for white people, that they need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. They need to get comfortable with being called out. I need to be comfortable with being corrected when I say the wrong thing. When these leaders in our opera industry, we are coming at you with solutions because we care about this. And we're coming at you asking for you to include your voice in this conversation because of your influence, because people listen to you, because you matter, right? So I want anyone who's watching this to reflect on the idea of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. When we started school, when we all decided we wanted to be opera singers, none of us knew French or German or Italian. We were comfortable with not being the smartest person in the room. Okay, we need to get comfortable with being corrected, with learning. There is nothing wrong with being wrong. There is only something wrong with choosing to stay wrong, right? So you have an opportunity now to read, to learn. Oh, so much information is out there. I have a dozen books and podcasts that I want to include at the end of this to encourage you guys to go and do research after this. But it's not an attack to say you can do better. It's an opportunity. And I want y'all to see it like that. Because we love opera, all of us here. We love this music and we want to continue to make it, but we want you to want us to be safe and comfortable. We want you to care about us as much as we care about this art form.
And I just want to jump in right here and say this, have I made mistakes? Yes. Have I benefited from being white? Yes. It's so systemic, and there's macroaggression, there's microaggression. And I know personally, I've screwed up. I've gotten angry, I've gotten defensive. It's not because I see in myself oh, I'm this racist person. It's honestly, it's a bias that is ingrained in us, in each and every one of us. We all have had thoughts that we need to dismantle. We all have had experiences that teach us, that say, okay, next time I'm not going to do it that way. And if you can learn and you can say, I'm not going to do it that way, guess what? You've grown. And we each have to help one another, and we each have to teach each other when we're out of line, when we're saying something wrong. But you can also do it compassionately, and you can say to your family members, I've done this week, hey, don't say all lives matter, because you know what? This is not the issue here. It's Black lives that matter right now. And as women, especially in this industry, we are ignored. How many general directors can we name at tier 1 companies that are women? There's 2. How many of them are women of color? There's 0. So we need to have more diversity with the people that we're working with. And I feel that's so important, that especially as women in opera who are white, we need to stand up for our friends. We need to care about our friends. You can learn, there's so many great resources out there, but you have to be open to making the change. Otherwise, you've done nothing. You are a racist then if you've done nothing.
I hear a lot but we don't know where they are. We don't get any candidates of color. And it's I just want something else that white people can start to become aware of is if you're in a room of only white people, in general, that's a good rule. When you are like, out there, and there's a lot of work of like charming donors at dinners or whatever. If you're in a room and it's like all just like white people with money, like maybe you need to change the circles that you're moving in, that you're thinking, that you're looking in. That has to be upon you. You have to go out and in a genuine way. Okay. Not in a like, oh, we got to get our quota. You have to look at your community in a genuine way. And try to move in different circles. Something else, we kind of talked about research, like the amount of research and study. Carrie, and you said this, that like we didn't know French or German or how to even sing with proper breath or whatever. And it's like you start somewhere. It's crazy the amount of research that we are made to do about other cultures, to sing about those cultures, that y'all don't give us. Like we have to learn, we get pages of diction notes. It's noticeable that the same kind of research is not done about our cultures.
I mean, we're constantly researching white culture or Spanish white culture or French white culture. Yeah, that's all we do.
So something you can do is look around and see, because we sure as hell know when we're in a room full of white people. It is palpable. You can feel that, right? So look around and be cognizant of that, and know that in and of itself is a problem. If certain decisions are being made and it's a room with no people of color in it, and as Andi said, it really should be more than one, because we also need the support. You need to pay attention to that. And the other thing I would say is learn to hold yourselves accountable, right? When you are making a decision, and I understand decisions need to be made quickly often, take a breath and think, and you're going to have to imagine. It's going to take imaginative work, because you're not really accountable in the society as it stands to people of color, right? And that's part of what has to change. But you're going to have to imagine that you are. So say you're about to make a decision. You're going to have to go through those extra steps. You're going to have to go through that work and say, is this like, am I offending? Is this something that would stand if my board was entirely Black? And it's going to change a lot about what actually goes on, what decisions are made.
Essentially, we're trying to take an art form with lots of toxic, regressive, femicide, racist, political, charged material, right? We're presenting because opera is supposed to reflect the human condition. It's supposed to reflect all of the issues that we have been living with. That means we are just reliving and watching racist, femicide, beautiful love stories. Some of them are beautiful, but most of them are problematic. Not all of the opera content is approachable. It shows racism. And so now we're taking that subject, right, opera, and we want to make it about the people. And so now we have a company trying to present this toxic content in a manner that is palatable. It's just this weird kind of hate circle we keep doing. We're in an opportunity to really, really reset and reflect the community you want in the audience. You want this village to thrive in this community, you have to tend to the community. I'm excited for this moment for all of us, but this is like where we talk about pacing and we talk about mental health, because people, how long have we been doing this? These Zoom meetings, these streams, it's been about a week, maybe 2 weeks. People are running out of energy, and it's been 2 weeks. Revolution is not in 2 seconds. It's going to take a long time, and it takes every single one of us to be at arms with it.
I was just going to continue with what you were saying, because this is definitely a topic that we wanted to focus on. We have an opportunity now to move things forward, right? And so a big part of that conversation has to be about mental health, and has to be about mental health specifically for Black and brown women who are often so neglected in that arena. And I want to just draw everyone's attention to a program that Brianna told me about, which is the Loveland Foundation. It is a community organization that focuses on getting therapy lectures on mental health, all the stuff to Black and brown women. And I want to encourage everyone, if you're out there on the streets protesting, if you're doing the work of activism, if you are fighting, you know, if you're arguing with your family members to try to create progress, that's taxing on your soul and your spirit. And we don't just need your bodies moving forward. We don't just need your voices. We need your heart and your energy. So that means taking time off. That means stepping away from your computer. That means meditating. That means finding inner peace and quiet and calming your spirit. You need to refill your body with food. You need to refill your spirit with energy and positivity, right? So I just want to make sure that in this conversation, that for these women here who I know are tired, and all of these beautiful, incredible human beings who have been presenting these conversations on Facebook that we've been watching for the last week and a half, they're tired, as they should be. They're rightly tired, and we need to stop asking them to explain. They've explained. Now we're moving towards solutions, right? We're moving towards the future, and the future means you got to take care of yourself to take care of others. You got to put your mask on first before you can put your mask on someone else, right? So, So find that inner peace. Take that time to settle yourself. God knows I got my doctor to increase my prescription of Prozac. I'm not playing any games right now. Like, you got to keep your spirit strong and your energy up, because this is a long fight. This is a long discussion, and we are moving for something that matters so deeply to all of us. We got to just keep with it.
I've enjoyed this conversation. But the other thing I just want to add to it is that the beautiful thing about COVID-19 is that COVID-19 basically gave us all a clean slate. It made the playing field even. So this is the opportunity to build from that. A lot of companies, unfortunately, are trying to reconfigure their financial structures. They're trying to figure out who can stay, who can go, what do we need to do, what audience or community do we need to reach out to. COVID-19 actually gave you the time to do the work. You need to add people of color on your administration staff. I want to say that one more time. You need to add people of color on your administrative staff so that you can start really doing the work. Because to be honest, people that look like me know how to reach people that look like me. People that look like Claudia know how to reach people that look like Claudia. If you want your audience to grow, if you want your audience to be diversified, if you want the tickets to sell, put people who look like your community. That's the way that you're going to get it to grow. You want younger, not to say anything about the old folks, because we love your silver hairs, okay? But you're going to definitely need new blood, new money. So you need to make sure you add some wonderful folks on your administrative staff to help build. So you CEOs and presidents out there who run these companies, COVID-19 really gave you a gift. Use the gift wisely. So my last point is about, I protest, but now I have these little boys and I'm afraid to go out marching and walking with the signs and coming home with COVID-19. I am a protester. I'm one of those people who do that. Okay. So let me just get that together. But if you are like me and have, family that you're caring for at home and you don't want to put yourself out there and you want to protest, but you don't know how, put your money on it. Donate. There, and if you're not sure what organizations to donate to large national organizations so that you're not worried that your money is being misspent somewhere or is going somewhere frivolous in your mind. So let me just name a few national organizations that you can donate to. NAACP, the ACLU, Color of Change. Also, locally, if you're trying to donate locally, but you're not sure, and it doesn't matter how much money you have, every little bit counts. okay? But if you're trying to do locally, and like I said, I'm a Christian, and whether you believe in God or not, or a higher power, there are churches out there doing the work. They have food pantries. They have a prison ministry. I just want to make sure that if you're not that protesting type, but you want to do something and you say, you know what, I just want to give a little bit of my monies to this. The last thing is, when you're out there with your friends and colleagues and you hear some negative talks or comments about really all of what's going on, be the voice to say, stop. I don't want to be a part of it. Whether you know how to add to the conversation or not, just tell them stop.
We're all of this is trying to help everybody be able to move freely through this world as their authentic selves.
Yes.
Like that's what Black people want. That's what trans people want. That's what gay people want. You know, every community. We just want to exist without the threat of dying, without the threat of retribution for being exactly who we are.
Yes, ma'am.
That's not like rocket science. That is the work that the arts should be doing and does do for us, but somehow we have lost our way. We have lost our way. The soul of this country is at stake. And if we can't all get behind Black lives, if we're not caring about the people at the border,
Oh my God.
like, let's not neglect that. Like, there are people in cages this year.
There are people in cages. There are actual Africans and Dominicans and Cubans that are trying to get into the U.S. through the Mexican border. They can't. So now they're displaced. And I'll speak just specifically about Nuevo Laredo. It was January was when I went back. And it was to see a bunch of displaced people trying to figure out the U.S. doesn't want me. Mexicans don't want me because I don't look like everybody else. And so now they have to learn Spanish in order to live in Nuevo Laredo for them to be able to get their paperwork to be able to come to the U.S. So, I mean, there's so many, it's a huge lack of empathy is what we're seeing. I'm not sure how that happened, but we got here. And it seems like people of color, Indigenous people, and Black people have to continue to live in an empathy-centered world, but no one else is held accountable towards that except us. The moment we say something crazy or we made someone uncomfortable, like, you have to kind of go like, okay, well, how can I reword that to make it not, so then my colleagues don't feel weird, or that interaction with that coach didn't go well. And this major kind of shifting, and at one point you had said it in your opera news, it's a code switching that we have to go back and forth. But within the Latino community, it's when we needed Black support, Black men and women and children to protest and to sign petitions to figure out where all these displaced kids are so we can reunite them to their mothers, Black people showed up. Mm-hmm. They did. A woman, she climbed the Statue of Liberty.
Oh, yes.
And I don't want to cry, but she climbed it and sat there and said, I'm not moving until we abolish ICE. This is huge. So I think, I know brown people have to do some work, do some real work. We have to show up. We have to be there. Because when we need it,
let me say, sis, I have to say that those protesters out there now, I'm so proud that there are more out there that don't look like me and holding up signs. And in the United States, unfortunately, nothing will change if white people don't say something. It is not about just brown and Black people saying something. It's really about whites. Whites have to stand with us because nothing changes. If they write a letter to a company because they are mad about whatever the company did, it changes. If I write a letter and my name sounds more ethnic, they're not going to pay me no attention. And that's the problem. That is the systemic racism. But I'm so proud of those who are out there walking and protesting peacefully. I'm so proud to see that because there is change happening. But just like you said, we can't get tired. We can't get tired. You got to stand there and keep marching, keep walking. And I mean, I even see these little elderly people. They got their little canes and they on the side in their wheelchair. They telling these young folks to push them, and they hold the sign and they'll pass them the water. I'm so proud to see the work that's being done. But I believe the reason why we're in the position we are in is because of who we have in office, because it's condoned. It starts from the top down. And also money. I follow I follow this woman named Rachel Rogers. I love her. You cannot be a broke feminist. You cannot be a broke pro-Black. You can't be broke and try to make a difference. Money is power. That's the thing. So whatever it is that you have, no matter how small it is or how big it is, money's power, and you got to put your money to make things move, because that's what white America understands. They understand money, they understand power. So that is what they understand. And people of color and other people, white folks, put your money with us. Help us build together. Help us build together, because that's what it is. I'm done.
You are done.
Oh, Andi, I wanted you to say that so badly.
Andi, I honestly think that's the end of it. I think that's how I'm gonna end it.
So far away, doesn't anybody stay in one place anymore? It would be so fine to see your face at my door. Doesn't help to know you're just time away. Long ago I reached for you and there you stood. Holding you again could only do me good. How I wish I could, but you're so far away.
I hope I said things that were useful.
I know, right? I'm like wondering if I just ranted or not.
I loved it.
I think I blacked out.
No,
That's
I
not
think
ranting. You were expelling. You were expelling.
You were like, my hair, my hair.